guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be watching a video called Explaining the Dutch Education System. It looks I'm excited to check this out because I have no idea how the Dutch education system works. And I don't know, like, even if they have like elementary, I'm guessing they have elementary school, like maybe I think it's like preschool, elementary school, and then high school, and then college, I would think. But I don't know, because I don't really know like anything about this, and I don't know if it's free, if you have to pay, if it's like free for for like the kids, but then if you want to go to college, like you have to pay that. I have no idea, but I've never heard anything about this, so I'm super excited to check this out. I'm guessing like it's gonna be like maybe it's gonna be very different. I don't know, we'll see. But comment, like, subscribe, and start.
If you happen to have watched the college storytime video I made a couple months ago, you'll probably recall me briefly explaining the Dutch education system and how it differs from the American one. I got a couple comments saying people would be interested in seeing a video explaining this system more thoroughly, so without further ado, here's my take on explaining the Dutch education system. I'll go through the entire system step by step in chronological order, so from kindergarten to university. The very first or pre-phase of education over here is called peuterspeelzaal, which roughly translates to toddler playroom. I know, sounds a bit silly, and is pretty much the Dutch equivalent of nursery school. Children ages 0 to 3 can attend toddler playroom, however it isn't obligated to do so. And once a child turns 4, they'll have to enter the next stage of education. This being basisschool, roughly translated basic school, which I'd say is the Dutch equivalent of elementary school. Here children will learn basic skills such as calculating, writing, reading, grammar, crafts, along with a couple of other basic subjects. Basic school consists of a total of 8 grades. These grades over here are referred to as groups. For example, once you enter basic school, you'll be in group 1. The following year you'll enter group 2, and so on and so forth. One subject we're also taught, which I'm not sure Americans are, during group 6 and 7 is traffic, where you learn about the basic traffic rules. In the Netherlands, it's pretty common for kids to travel to school by bicycle, seeing how school buses aren't really a thing over here. Plus, the villages often are only 15 to 30 minutes of cycling away due to the Netherlands' small size. So you can imagine what would happen if children were to just cycle along the road, oblivious to all traffic.
No.
Near the end of group 7, everyone is obligated to take a cycling exam, where you have to cycle a certain route through town while paying attention to all kinds of traffic boards. Once you pass the exam, you receive your long-awaited cycling diploma and immediately shrug off all rules you ever learned. High school students. Besides that, you're also obligated to take the CITO test near the end of group 8. The result of this particular test, along with your overall performance during basic school, will determine what level of secondary education you'll be following. By this point, you'll be 12 years old. So this is where things might get a bit complicated. At age 12, you'll enter voortgezet onderwijs, roughly translated continued education, which is the Dutch equivalent to American middle and high school. The thing about continued education is that there's different difficulties of high school to choose from after leaving basic school.
There's so many.
This is where the CITO test comes into play. Depending on the advice you were given in group 8, you have several options. VWO, which is a rough acronym for preparing scientific education. This is the highest possible difficulty of continued education you can possibly follow, and will take a total of 6 years to complete. VWO prepares its students for WO, which is similar to American university and thus contains the largest amount of theory matter in terms of subjects. HAVO, a rough acronym for Higher General Continued Education. This is the second to highest possible difficulty you can follow and will take 5 years to complete. Whereas VWO often deeply delves into particular subject matter, HAVO tends to cover the more general side of things, plus VWO also tends to have stricter grading methods compared to HAVO. When attending this difficulty, you'll be prepared for something called HBO, the Dutch equivalent of American college. MAVO,
called
roughly
college?
translated Secondary General Continued Education. MAVO will take you 4 years to complete and prepares you for MBO. In terms of difficulty, there's quite a gap between MAVO and HAVO, or at least that's what I've heard.
Okay.
VMBO, which is a rough acronym for Preparing Secondary Job Education, which comes in 4 different routes. Each of these routes takes 4 years to complete. These include VMBO TL, the TL standing for Theoretic Education, which actually is just a different name for MAVO. However, due to the negative connotation VMBO tends to have over here, due to it being the lowest level of secondary education, they decided to change its name to MAVO. VMBO GL, the GL standing for Mixed Education, which is pretty much equal to MAVO, except GL adds a job-specific subject, making GL a mix between practical and theoretic subjects. VMBO KB, KB standing for Job Framework, which mainly focuses on practical subjects rather than theory-based ones. Students here learn skills by doing rather than studying. VMBO BB, BB standing for Job Basics, which is pretty similar to KB, except the amount of study load is a lot less. Both KB and BB are there to prepare students for handicraft and other sorts of craftsmanship. Practical education, students who are unable to obtain a VMBO diploma but still wish to enter the job market can be enrolled in practical education. Last but not least, there's also a route called LWOO, which acronym roughly translates to Assisted Learning Education. This route is meant for VMBO students who either struggle a lot with basic subjects like calculation, grammar, reading comprehension, etc., or have severe social emotional problems. Alright, so that's all of them. I think.
That's so complicated.
There probably are some more exceptions that I glanced over, but these ones mentioned are the major ones. I could go into detail how each route works, but I'd rather keep this video under 2 hours, so... Anyway, once you've completed any of the previously mentioned routes, you most likely will enter a certain difficulty of college. This difficulty will of course be dependent on what difficulty you completed high school at. We'll start with MBO. As I mentioned earlier, MBO is a type of college you can attend after you've completed MAVO. MBO is categorized in 4 levels. MBO level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4, and takes a total of 3 or 4 years to complete. With each level, the amount of independent work activity increases, meaning at level 1 you're an assistant, while at level 4 you're capable of performing specialized tasks. The minimum requirement to enter levels 2 to 4 is that you either have a VMBO or MAVO diploma. You're only capable of progressing to the next tier of college-like education if you complete MBO level 4. From here you have the option to progress to HBO or enter the job market with an MBO level 4 diploma, which is somewhat equivalent to an American associate's degree. HBO can roughly be translated to higher job education, which is the follow-up to HAVO and takes 4 years to complete. Though of course, graduated HAVO students also have the option to choose MBO if they wish so for. HBO together with WO form the university section of education in the Netherlands. The main difference between the two though is that HBO focuses more on understanding how things happen and applying acquired knowledge with more supervision, while WO is more focused on why things happen and is more research orientated with less supervision. Though in reality, the amount of supervision within HBO is also pretty much non-existent. Watch my college video. Once students complete an HBO course, they'll earn an HBO bachelor degree. Afterwards, they can choose to enter the work field or continue studying for an HBO master degree. As I mentioned, WO in contrast to HBO is more focused on the research aspect of subjects. WO can be roughly translated to scientific education and is the follow-up to VWO. Though of course VWO students can also enter HBO or MBO courses. After approximately 4 years, students will be rewarded with a WO bachelor degree. Afterwards, they have the option to enter the job field or continue studying for a master's degree, which the majority, as far to my knowledge, tends to do. Alright,
Because that's what you're
so that's
choosing,
pretty much
so
it
of
for
course.
the Dutch education system. There's quite a lot of details regarding grading and law-related stuff I left out,
It's
but
insane.
these are pretty much the basic explanations of each department. Thank
That's
you for
amazing.
watching, and I hope to see you again in my next video. Bye!
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of, okay, this was surprising to me. I didn't thought it was going to be that complicated. I think something that's quite like, oh my god, I can't believe you get to choose, because of the thing where it's the equivalent sort of to like high school, sort of, but year 12, well, that's kind of like the, well, no, it's like middle school, but whatever. It's the thing is that from what I could gather, if I understood correctly, you have to like choose your main option, like your main, it's gonna take a lot of years of your life, and you have to like choose a path, but you're 12. So it's like, and I think even like choosing a college, because usually I know that you can go to college at whatever age, but usually when you're in high school and you're like, oh, they're preparing you like for a degree and you're preparing for college, it's like, well, what am I supposed to, like, you're 17, 18, and you're supposed to like choose whatever it is that you want to do with your life in general. But it's like, well, here's your 12, and I even think 17 and 18. It's like you're very young to be like actually making those choices, and it's like, but here you're 12 again. It's like, oh my god, it's like, calm down, please. So it's like this. They all have to have their basically their lives plan ahead since the time they're 12. I don't know how I feel about that. It's kind of weird. But if you like change your mind in the middle of like you're halfway through this program. You're in program where it was great. No, they levels. It was like, I think it was levels, but it's sort of like grades. So what if you're like halfway through in like the third one, and you're like, you know what? Actually, I want to do like something related with like craftsmanship, because I want to do, I don't know, you want to make shoes, or you want to do woodworking, or you want to be a plumber, I don't know, like whatever it is, but you can change your mind. So what happens if you change your mind? Can you just like go to the other, or do you just like continue? No, because you have to actually know the thing. It's like, well, I don't think there's an overlap between the things that they're being taught. Maybe like in the levels of the ones I had like to the left side of the screen, the ones that are more academic, maybe there's some overlap there, but in the ones that are more practical based, I don't think there's an overlap between those and the others. So it's like, what happens if you change your mind, or the other way around? What happens, but maybe it's not, it doesn't happen the other way around, like if you're into like the practical aspect of things and then you want to like switch to another, because they do mention that it's not somewhat, well, I'm guessing if you have like incredible grades, you can choose like whatever it is that you want to. But if your grades are not enough, like the exam was like, no, I'm sorry, like you didn't make it, you have to go into the craftsmanship section. But what happens if you improve and your condition, maybe I don't know, you like, it takes you some time, but maybe you along the way you're like, no, actually I got better. Can you retake the exam? And then like you switch, but maybe you graduate like a little, like instead of graduating at like 18 or 17, maybe you graduate at 20, like from the equivalent of high school. I have so many questions about this, because again, it sounds a little complicated, a lot complicated actually. And that's just the elementary school part of things, and the high school. But it's like, it has so many things, but I'm shocked by how planned your life has to be, like from a very young age. And then obviously they have the college, but it's not called college, is another thing. And from what I could understand, like you can do your master's and maybe I'm guessing then you can go to a PhD. But it's like, well, it's more like the scientific part of things. But what happens if you want to do a PhD on something, or an academic, well, you can do a master's on whatever. But if you want to do like a thesis or something, or you want to get a master's on some like a literature degree, or I don't know, in there's like, you could study Dutch, I guess, you know, as you study English, you can study Dutch, or I don't know, like something that's not so much scientific based, but you know, you can make like the arts also have, you can also get PhDs in those sort of like areas. So can you do that? Or it's like, no, it's just for scientific areas, like only, I don't know, like biology, or I don't know, medicine. So also, like, what happens like for lawyers, like what's the thing with lawyers or doctors or some things that and careers that have to be like highly specialized, especially like a doctor, that you have to like you have to study like 10 years or something. like what's the deal with that? Like, do you go to like the it's the equivalent, or you have to go to another separate thing that's called med school or a law degree in order for you to get a law degree? Like, you also have to complete like this basic sort of like college, and then you go to law school. I have a lot of questions about this actually, but yeah, this was surprising. Also, like I'm guessing, like I'm focusing on a little, maybe it's not negative, but I'm like, it's like, oh my god, you're 12 and you have to like make a choice. But on the other hand, I think that it's more efficient that way, because if you're looking at like the really positive side of things, it's like, well, if you're studying for this particular area and you've been studying this since you're 12, by the time you're 18, 20, 21, 22, then obviously you're going to be like a master at whatever it is that you're studying. So I think it takes to create like this system, probably takes like it's probably designed for everyone to have like to be highly specialized and highly skilled in whatever it is that they're choosing. And I guess that's probably like the logic behind of it, because it's like, well, yes, you're because you're getting them earlier. So if you've been studying, I don't know, to be an engineer since the time that you're 13, well, of course, again, you're gonna have an easier time in college, because you're gonna have like that great basic elementary school education that is being catered for you to, in order for you to get an engineering degree, later on in your life. So you're gonna have an easier time, because you're gonna have great basics in that specific area that you're choosing. And also, of course, it's gonna make, when you actually enter the job force, obviously you're gonna be better at it, because again, you've been doing this like your whole life, like half your life, and you're like 23. So it's like, it's not opposite to other countries. And I don't know if like most countries, if you're like 22, 23, 22 even, like you're just entering the workforce and you don't have a lot of experience, because you're just like, oh, this is real life, this is the real world. And I think probably in this case it's like, well, technically yes, but not really, because I've been studying this since I was 13 or 12. So again, I guess that's the logic, and it sounds like great logic. Obviously, like the design, it's flawless, only that I'm a little, I don't know, I'm worried for the people that maybe change their minds, and if they're allowed to change their minds halfway through, because it happens, especially when you're a teen. Your interest may not be the same when you're 12 than when you're 15. Maybe you switch, you've discovered like this particular subject you really like, or maybe they do it like in a way that's designed for you to actually realize what you're good at, and what you actually like beforehand. So all those years that you spend before in the other sort of like section, it's like they I don't know, they make you do like a lot of maths, or they make you like do a lot of writing, or I don't know what are this, in order for you to actually see, or what am I actually good at. But I have to say also, maybe it can change. Maybe you're very good at numbers by when you're 11, and by the time you're 16, it's like, no, there was a cap on how good I could be, and this is not it. So what happens? Maybe if you fail, like they have you like retake, because I'm guessing again, when you have to pass the grades, obviously you have to take exams. So maybe if you don't pass those exams, maybe you get the choice to switch. Maybe that's the thing, and maybe that's what happens. It's like, well, you unfortunately you can't move past you can't move past another grade. So what are you going to do? You're just going to repeat this grade, or you're going to switch to something else. But I like the fact that everything's very I don't know, it has categories, so everyone's sort of like divided into something, so you're not gonna be left feeling, like, floating around the world, like, oh, what am I gonna do? It's like, no, they make you choose quite early what is it that you're gonna do in your life. And also, I forgot to say, what happens if you want to get 2 degrees? A lot of people actually have like 2 degrees. So what happens if you wanna keep studying? Like, can you actually, like, you finish one when it comes to like colleges? Maybe you have something related to, I don't know, like whatever career that you've chosen, you have a degree in that, and then maybe you can switch, not switch, like you got your degree. It's like, well, what happens if I want to keep studying? Now I want to study, I don't know, I don't know, whatever it is, I want to study English. So what happens then? Like, can you just return and you can just go to another college? But maybe you have to, how do they know that if you're prepared enough to like actually do those things, especially if you're having degrees, if your 2 degrees are not, there's no overlap, maybe you have one in English and another in biology. So it's like, well, they don't really overlap. So what happens then? So you have to like retake the basic course. I don't know. I'm so like, my mind's blown away by this. It's so complicated. And she said, it's like, well, and this is like the sort of like the bigger picture. Like, we're not getting to any specifics. So I actually would like to see the specifics, but at the same time, I'm gonna need a chart. It's very complicated. It's a lot of information to take in, but love it. And I think it does sound like, even if I mention like the thing about, well, it's kind of sad. I'm worried about the people that if they want to switch. But it's very efficient. I will say that it's very efficient, and it's like I think again, it says a lot like the Dutch. If the Dutch system is like that, it's like, well, again, they want to have a very efficient society, and they want you to be a really productive member of society, and that's why they train you early. So makes sense. And again, it's very efficient, so I can't fault them because of it. But yeah, incredibly interesting video, and I'll see you soon. Bye.